Hi, my name is Jessica Onsaga, and this is Beyond Ministry. I'm very excited to be here with you today because we are going to be going after our first encounter. Now, this encounter is designed to be a broad brushstroke that can be used to go after any of the soul wounds or filters that we are operating from in our soul. Now, if you're not familiar with the term encounters, I suggest you go back and watch the video where I discuss that it is impossible for you not to be able to talk with God. In there, I explain the theology and the basics and the how and the why behind being able to engage with God face to face because we are already one spirit with Jesus when you believe in Him. And so encounters are just getting the soul to catch up to what's already happened in our spirit. Here's my motto for the way that I address and go after things in my soul. If it's not found in heaven, it doesn't have to be found in me. So grief, pain, despair, fear, shame, rejection, loneliness. The list goes on and on and on. If it's not found in heaven, then I can go after that soul belief and get free of it because I have the right to agree with all the things that are in heaven. Because I'm one spirit with Jesus, He's broken the power of sin. He's paid for all of my healing. I'm already seated in heavenly places. All that has to happen is to get my soul to agree with what's already done. And so in this encounter, we're going to be able to ask Jesus questions that will help reveal things that are going on in our soul. It'll help reveal filters and lies and wrong belief systems that we're operating from. And as we address these lies and take off these filters, then we'll be able to see more clearly in both the physical realm and the spiritual realm. I'm not talking about physically seeing clear. I'm talking about being able to perceive and see and experience clearer what is going on in both dimensions. I put it this way to summarize it. Jesus' blood paid for the price for my freedom. He has already broken every chain and freed me from sin, and the enemy is not powerful enough to undo what Jesus has done. I am not powerful enough to undo what Jesus has done. This is so cool and so profound that no actions done to me and none of my actions that I do are big enough to stop or undo what Jesus has done. And same with the enemy. The power of the enemy has been broken. The keys have been taken away from them. And so Jesus, He finished it. It is done. And so all I have to do is decide, is agree, is choose Him in every area of my soul. Now, let's keep going. We are one. So that means that the only one standing in the way of my breakthrough is my free will. My soul, my mind, is the only one getting in the way of all the good things that Jesus has for me. How amazing is that? So this encounter is going to be going after any soul stuff that pops up. Jesus might bring up a shame today, and then tomorrow if you go on the encounter again, He might bring up something with fear or something with loneliness. This encounter can be used to talk about the different lenses, the different filters, the different soul wounds that our soul is operating from. Now, if you're sensing or feeling or seeing what I call a wall in the encounter, then pause this video and go and watch the wall encounter that I have posted, because the soul will put up self-protective walls. And with that self-protective wall that we have put up with our free will, it will shut down going on encounters and engaging with God because we put this wall up. And Jesus is a gentleman. He doesn't come and kick the door in when we've put a wall up. So the walls are, again, our responsibility to take down, but walls are handled a little bit different when we do that self-protection mechanism. So keep going with this encounter, but if you start sensing or feeling that something that you would describe as a wall, whether you feel it, you see it, you sense it, then pause this video and jump over to the wall video to help you with that. So other than walls, grief is a different encounter as well. So grief is an actual loss. Grief is pain. So in grief, we're not needing to break agreement with lies, like a loved one died. There's not lies. Like, you can start believing lies. Like, you could decide that God's not good in the midst of losing the loved one, but the loss of the loved one still needs to be healed, separate from healing or addressing any lies that we might pick up along the way. So grief gets handled a little bit different, walls get handled a little bit different. But other than those two, you can use this encounter to go after anything in your life. Something else that's really fun before we dive in is that you can watch this video over and over and over again and go after different things in your life. That's why this is the first encounter that I'm posting, because it provides the flexibility for you to be able to go after whatever thing it is, because it might take me a while or I might not get to the specific thing that you're wanting to go after with Jesus. So I have a couple tips to remind you before we go any further. When you're going on an encounter, I recommend not going with an agenda. So if you go and you say, Jesus, I want to heal this. Jesus can see the big picture. He can see our soul, where our soul is at, and the best way and the best process for our soul to heal. So if we go in and we say, Jesus, I want to deal with this, but he sees that the foundational thing is over here, or that we need to grow history, that you need to grow some trust with Jesus before you're willing to go there, and he'll pick a smaller thing to go after. And so trust Jesus in the process. Don't go with an idol in your heart of saying, I want this. Go open-handed. You can still bring things to him, of course, but don't cling to them as this is an absolute. Don't go with the agenda and the have to. Go in a surrendered position. And as you trust Jesus and his leading, you'll see that his way is best. He knows our process best. He knows where we're at. He knows what we need to get free and the foundational things that we need to go through to get free. So, tip number 1, don't go with an agenda. Don't go with an idol in your heart. Next, you can choose to believe what Jesus says regardless of how you feel about it. So don't be misled in thinking that your feelings dictate your choices. Just like with the working out. You can choose to go work out even if you don't feel like working out. In the same way, you engage your free will. You engage your intention, your belief, your faith, however you want to frame it up. You're saying, nope, I'm going to go to the gym today. In the same way, if you don't feel like what Jesus is saying is true, you can choose in spite of your feelings to say, no, I'm going to believe what Jesus is saying. We're going to test this out. We're going to try this out. So you can choose regardless of your feelings. Next, if you get to a part of the encounter that freezes or you stop being able to see or engage Jesus, remember that the only thing that you're experiencing is these glasses again. God has not changed his nature when it came to engaging with you. And Jesus didn't say, I'm going to heal every area of your life, but that soul wound. When we get to a spot, or if you get to a spot in an encounter where all of a sudden it freezes or all of a sudden you can't hear Jesus anymore, what that is showing you is that your soul is filtering out the engagement with Jesus. Your soul is shutting down. So don't blame God, because God is not pulling away. God has drawn near to us. Remember that when Adam sinned, Adam was the one who hid in the garden. Our brokenness makes us pull away from God. It makes us turn our face. When Adam sinned, he pulled away and God drew near. God came to walk with Adam. God didn't come with lightning. He didn't come with wrath. He didn't come and destroy the whole garden. God came to walk with his friend. And that's what you're experiencing in the encounter. If we're seeing and talking and engaging Jesus and then it stops or it freezes or it gets difficult, you found a spot where your soul put some glasses on. Or if it's difficult at the beginning, God seems far away or whatever. In the encounter, you're experiencing something where your soul is distorting what you're seeing based on its belief systems. So that's why we're going to break agreement with lies. We're going to break agreement with some common belief systems in just a few minutes right before we dive into the encounter, so we can take off as many glasses as possible, affecting and distorting what we're seeing with our spiritual eyes. Next, I recommend write down things that you want to go after. One is super helpful, because then it has your soul take ownership. Hey, I want to have less shame in my life. I want to have more joy in my life. I want to have more peace in my life. I want to be less afraid. Write down those things that you want to go after, because that makes your soul take ownership and say, hey, I want to do this. These are things that I'm acknowledging are in my life that I want to be free from. Don't go with the idol in your heart, but that positions the soul to be like, all right, we're ready for this. Secondly, write down the things that you are seeing in the encounter. Write down what Jesus said. Write down the things that he showed you, because it's so easy to forget. I can just promise you now, everyone has had really cool dreams that we forget, right? As cool as the dream may be, and you wake up, I will never forget this. We forget so many of our dreams because we don't write them down. It's just the way that our brain doesn't remember everything. So if you write things down after the encounter, it will help the encounter to stick, and you'll be able to reference it later and remind your soul, this is what Jesus said. We broke agreement with this lie, and in its place, we are standing on what Jesus said. And you can remind yourself easier when you have it written down. I made a list of things that I have decided in my life. And in deciding that, I felt like it was helpful because it put my heart in the position of the line drawn in the sand. I'm going to be all in, and I'm going to try this thing out. And as I've been all in and I've tried it out, I have seen so much life and so much joy and so much peace that I'm sticking with these things that I've decided because it worked out so good for me. So I wanted to list off the things that I decided in my heart along this journey to share with you in case you want to make that same decision. If you want to draw that line in the sand and say, this is where I am going to stand. So here's what I have. I have decided that all the lies of the enemy are lies. Everything that he tells me is going to bring death, destruction, and rob my peace and my joy. And so regardless of how true something that the enemy is saying sounds, I'm going to choose to cast it out because I am deciding that everything he says is lies. I've decided to take back the real estate of my heart that I've given to the enemy. So in my body, soul, spirit, my spirit's already one with Jesus. It's finished. In my soul, I have surrendered territory of my heart to the enemy, where I'm agreeing with fear. I'm agreeing with shame. I'm agreeing with rejection, whatever it is. And I am dissatisfied personally that I have given territory of my heart to the enemy. So I decided I want to take back all the land of my heart and submit it to Jesus so that every area of my life can be bubbling over with love, joy, peace, and more. I decided that Jesus always has my yes. So when confronted with that crossroad and Jesus saying, will you believe what I'm saying? I have decided that when Jesus tells me truth, I am always going to choose what Jesus says. When Jesus asks me to do something, like anything, Jesus has my yes. His way is best, and he has the best in mind for me and the best in mind for everyone around me. And so I am always going to say yes to him. Lastly, I have decided to engage and agree with things that will produce life in my life. So if I'm holding on to, let's say, guilt, regret. I started talking to Jesus about regret because I had regret about things in my life. And Jesus told me, he says, do you know that there's no regret in heaven? I was like, okay. And he was like, regret is this kind of like in between shame and guilt. Like he's this kind of in between emotion. He says, but there's only goodness. There's only healing. There's only life. And regret is not a life producing emotion. Regret brings you down. It doesn't bring you up. And so he invited me to be free from regret. And so in that journey, it helped me decide to agree with things that are only going to produce life. So I'll look at an emotion, I'll look at a feeling, I look at the thought, and I say, is this producing life? Does this bring me higher or is this bringing me down? So depending upon that answer, I'm giving it to Jesus and letting him sift it and finding out the truth so that I can agree with things that are only going to produce life in my life. So with this list that I just read, in deciding these things, it helped put my heart in the posture of, I want Jesus, I want to be free, I want to grow, I want this. It helped draw the line in the sand for me. Now, in spite of this wonderful list of the things that I decided, sometimes I was still offended and mad and I did not want to budge. And so a fun backdoor hack that Jesus has taught me is to ask Jesus, what is this thing doing in my life? So for example, I was really offended at my husband. And in the encounter, I did not want to let go of the offense. He had offended me and he had been rude and I didn't want to forgive him. I didn't want to let it go. So in the encounter, I was wrestling with Jesus, trying to figure out, like, I want to let this go, but I don't want to let this go, and so on. And I looked down, and in my hands, the offense that I was holding on to was shown as poop, like literal logs of poop. And so Jesus kindly put his hand out, like, hey, give me this. This isn't bringing life to you. Give me this offense and this bitterness and this unforgiveness you have towards your husband. And when Jesus extended his hand, like, hey, I'm offering to take this for you, I pulled away like a little kid and I was like, no! And when I did that, I like squeezed the poop. I know I'm being graphic here, but I squeezed it and the poop's like now squeezed in between my fingers and is making so much more of a mess. And it was when I squeezed it that it kind of jarred me to realize in my soul, like, oh, this is really gross. And then I realized by holding on to this all the more, I made so much more of a mess because now the poop is just everywhere to try and get this cleaned up. And so in Jesus offering and me pulling away in my offense, it finally woke me up that I was like, oh, I want to be free of this. And then I was softened. That realization of what I was holding on to finally kicked in and brought me to that place of, yes, Jesus, please help me. And he was so kind in removing the logs from my hand and then cleaning in between my fingers and getting me perfectly clean again. Took more work that way, but that backdoor hack of asking Jesus, what does this look like in my life? Like, what is this doing to my heart? I've seen everything from chains or being pinned down or things manifesting as something yucky or a creature that's chewing on your shoulder, like whatever it is that Jesus shows you, when you see the reality of what that thing is, that you're not wanting to go at, like that your soul is not wanting to go after yet, when you see what it's doing to your heart, it kind of jars you like, oh, maybe this thing isn't a friend. Maybe this thing isn't good for me to be in agreement with. Maybe I do want to be free from the offense, the bitterness, the unforgiveness, you name it. So that's a fun backdoor hack that can be helpful. Now, let's get into breaking agreement with lies because I want to get into the encounter. So when we're dealing with lies, our soul commonly will loyally attach itself with emotion to the belief systems that we hold. So the soul wants to defend and protect these belief systems. The stronger the belief, the more emotion is tied to it. So if you get really offended, emotional, or frustrated in a certain area, it is highlighting an area of your soul that is attached or in agreement with something not of heaven. The fruit of heaven is love, joy, peace, and life. So if it's not producing that effect in your life, then we don't want it in us. So we're going to break agreement with lies now at the beginning. We're going to take off a lot of the common glasses that our souls are believing at the beginning of the encounter. But also in the encounter, Jesus will highlight other lenses, other glasses that our soul is believing and operating from that we haven't addressed yet. So we're going to break agreement with lies now, but it'll come up again later in the encounter. Lastly, I would like for you to own this conversation. You are choosing to draw a line in the sand. You are choosing to take off the glasses. And so I'd like for you to repeat after me. When you repeat after me, it helps you to believe it to the point that you're speaking it and you're hearing it and it shifts the atmosphere around you. It's really powerful to speak it. But if you're not willing to speak it, I'm not going to know any different because this is a video. But also, you can say it in your head, say it in your heart, but this is you doing it. You have to engage your free will to do this encounter. With your free will, you are choosing to draw a line in the sand and take off the glasses, break agreement with lies, and choose to stand in truth and agree with what's already done in your spirit. So with that, let's go after the most common glasses that everybody deals with. So repeat after me. I break agreement with the lie that I can't see and I can't hear God. I break agreement with the lie that God is mad at me or distant. And I break agreement with the lie that it is hard to connect with God. So, now that we've taken off the common lenses that our soul is believing, we're going to go into the encounter. And It's easiest when you start practicing going on encounters to close your eyes because it limits the distraction for your soul. So you can talk to God with your eyes open, but I recommend closing them. And remember that we're going to be looking at the TV screen where we have dreams. That's the easiest way for me to explain seeing with your spiritual eyes and hearing with your spiritual ears. Is that same place where we have dreams in the same way that we engage with dreams. We hear and we speak all internally in dreams. That's where we're going to be turning our attention and our focus in the encounter. So with that, I'd like for you to close your eyes, be still. And we're going to ask Jesus a question, and I want you to repeat after me this question. Jesus, will you show me a place where we can talk? And don't worry about trying to make it happen. Sometimes you'll just see fragments or small pieces of it. You're learning to use your spiritual eyes. And so at the beginning, you might see little. And as you practice it, you'll grow in this and you'll see more and more. Now, in the picture that Jesus showed you, if you don't see him already there in that place that he took you, I want you to look around for Jesus. If it seems like he's far away, then it's revealing again that your soul is believing a lie and your soul is filtering out the encounter because God promises to never leave us or forsake us. And Jesus can't be far away because he's one spirit with you. So we're going to break agreement with lies again. If Jesus is far away, then I want you to say this. In the name of Jesus, I break agreement with the lie that Jesus is far away. Now, as you see Jesus in that place, I want you to greet Jesus however you feel comfortable and take as much time as you need. Remember that you can pause this video at any point and stay in the conversation as long as you can. I want you to look at Jesus and ask him, Jesus, what do you want to heal today? Are there any lies that I am believing? And then be still and listen to what he says. Jesus, how is this thing affecting my heart and life? Now, whatever Jesus brought to you to heal, whatever lie he highlighted, if you're ready to take off those glasses, if you're ready to be free from this thing, then I want you to repeat after me. Jesus, I am powerfully choosing to break all attachments and agreements with this thing and fill in the blank for whatever Jesus just highlighted as being a lie. Now, it's important that whenever we address a lie, we need to fill that void. We need to fill that place. So you're taking back the real estate of your heart and establishing it on truth. So I want you to look at Jesus and ask him, Jesus, what truth do you want me to stand on in place of this lie? Now I want you to be intentional. I want you to say out loud and take in that truth that Jesus said. So Jesus, I choose to receive and believe what you just said. And say the truth out loud that you are choosing to now stand on. Jesus, is there anything else that you want to tell me about this? Jesus, can I come back here and talk with you anytime? And of course, it's always kind to thank Jesus for what he just showed you and what he did for the freedom that you just got in your life. So however feels comfortable, I'd like for you to thank Jesus for this. How cool is that? Now, there are a lot of ways to cut down a tree, and it's not saying that one is better than the other. These prompts that I've just given you are tips. They're things to help you, but they're not the only way to engage God. And so the questions that I gave you are helpful to help start a conversation. Just like when you're hanging out with someone and you're wanting to get to know them more, having some good questions can be helpful to grow relationship and to ask the right questions to go after the things in the soul. So that's all that this is giving you some prompts to help you, but this is not the only way. On my website and in the description, I have a free PDF that has lots of prompt questions that you can go and ask Jesus. Ask, ask, ask. Engage as much as you can for as long as you can. And the more you do that, the more you're going to see and the more you're going to hear and the more you'll be free. Before we close, I do want to say you do not need me. You don't need the prompts and you don't need these fancy music that we have. All you need is Jesus. He has already done it. In 1 John 2:27, it says, "You have received the Holy Spirit. He lives within you. So you don't need anyone to teach you what is true. For the Spirit teaches you everything you need to know, and what He teaches is true. It is not a lie. So just as He has taught you, remain in fellowship with Christ." You are already one. You don't need me. You don't need any of these resources. When I started out, I didn't have any of these resources. And through years of trial and error and figuring out how to get unstuck and dealing with walls and all the things, I've learned tips and tricks and things that can be helpful. So these teachings can be helpful to you and they can help give you a good foundation and starting place, but don't stop here and don't let this be a crutch to you. Use them and then run. My hope is for you to fly as you become less and less bogged down with all the soul stumbling blocks and all the brokenness and all the pain. God has such wonderful things in store for you. This is just the beginning.